One thing that I was surprised at when you go through and you actually read our founding documents is that it's kind of hard to read. Not in the fact that it's a different language or even that our language has evolved so much. It's kind of hard to understand because they use such different words and syntax and conjugations. No, aside from like the occasional hath, like HATH, oh, it's the same language. We're just dumb. I'm not trying to insult you. Like we have the same brain power that they did. Our brains haven't gone backwards, but we went to public school. Our schooling system is different. Our college system is different. Look, in order to get into Columbia, you didn't just have to have good grades. You didn't have to finish in the top 10% of your class. You didn't have to have all these perfect extracurriculars. But you know what you did have to do? You had to be able to read Virgil in its native Latin. Yeah. I think most of the people listening, and no offense to you, don't even know who I'm talking about. Who the hell's Virgil? Yeah, exactly. So now all you have to do to get into college for a lot of places is fog a mirror. College has remedial classes these days, and it means nothing to graduate from high school. If someone graduates from high school, does that mean anything to you? You're like, oh, they must be intelligent, or they must be at least some acceptable level of educated. No, because there's a lot of people that graduated from my class at Buck Tussle High School that are about as smart as this particle board desk here. I mean, my left shoe has solved more problems than they have. So public education has destroyed education, and it's not a slight on public school teachers or administrators or anything like that. It's an economic issue. Socialism is inferior to the free market. Private education is why we were doing so good back then. That, and we had dads, this crazy thing where you would fall in love and get married and have kids and, actually stick around and raise them dads. But the example I'm going to give to you here, this is just from Federalist One. Alexander Hamilton wrote it right before he made that musical. And I'm kidding y'all. I know he didn't do the damn musical. But he's laying out in the Federalist Papers, this was this string of op-ed columns that were written by three of our founding fathers, Madison, Hamilton, and John Jay. And it was after the Constitution had been written, and we're going through the process. They're trying to convince the American people to ratify the Constitution. And so Hamilton's laying out the reason for the Federalist Papers in Federalist One. And don't just listen to what he says. Listen to how he says it. Listen to what an educated man actually sounds like, because we never hear this. No one talks like this in any of your Netflix shows. No one talks like this in any of the song lyrics that you listen to. No one even talks like this in any of the college classes that you attended, unless they were reading from original source material like this. And this is Hamilton, a guy who went to school for 1 year? And he wrote like this? Come on.
After full experience of the insufficiency of the existing federal government, you are invited to deliberate upon a new constitution for the United States of America. The subject speaks its own importance, comprehending in its consequence nothing less than the existence of the Union, the safety and welfare of the parts of which it is composed, the fate of an empire in many respects the most interesting in the world. It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country to decide by their conduct and example the important question whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. If there be any truth in the remark, the crisis at which we are arrived may, with propriety, be regarded as the period when that decision is to be made, and a wrong election of the part we shall act may, in this view, deserve to be considered as the general misfortune of mankind.
Bro, I can't write like that. I can barely keep up with that. That's beautiful, isn't it? That's what we're all capable of if we did have a proper education, if we did learn the classics in the classical way of thinking and learning things. But coming up next, look, I'm bringing this to you. This next clip is going to be from Common Sense. Thomas Paine. Now, this guy went to school for 5 years back in the 1700s. Remember, this is before electricity. This is before the internet. No one even had a beeper. And the next one's going to be even more profound because I actually want you to not just pay attention to how well it's written, but the content of what he's talking about. When he's talking about the reason for America coming into existence, the reason why we're coming up with this form of government, the reason why we're throwing off kings and monarchies when the entire world had a monarchy. He uses a biblical base for it. And I'm playing this next to show you why it's important we are allowed to include the Bible and biblical references into our school curriculum. It's not to proselytize. It's not to try and convert everyone to Christianity or make everyone fall in love with Jesus. It's that you cannot properly tell this country's history, especially the founding of this country and our founding documents, without some sort of biblical knowledge. Because the references he makes here are under the assumption that whoever's reading this is going to know what he's talking about. And you can point to the exact time when the standards started to decline, and that's when we started this terrible, failed, embarrassing experiment of public schools. And I don't know how many times we have to bang our head against the wall of socialism before we realize that free markets are better. Private education is better. We need to get rid of public schools. I don't know if everyone's ready for that conversation just yet, but let me give you an example here. Thomas Paine's Common Sense is the final nudge that the American people needed to be ready for revolution, to throw off monarchies, because we weren't asking for a small thing. We weren't asking for let's split off and make our own king. We were like, let's split off and do something that no one has ever done in your entire life. You've never seen this, because in their time, in their frame of reference, the whole world has kings. There's no such thing as a government that's not run by kings. So it sounds like the founding fathers were just talking about fantasy, but the founding fathers knew. They knew about Rome. They knew about Athens. They knew about the brief experiments with first pure democracy and then this thing the Romans did called a republic. And to sell it to the American people, Thomas Paine has a pamphlet, and it's only 42 pages long. It's not long. But remember, as high level and as intelligent and complex as his language is, this was written in a way that was supposed to be and was understood by even country farm folk. People who spent most of their days behind some donkey yanking a plow around were able to understand this. Y'all, we think we're smarter now. We think that they were a bunch of bumbling idiots because, they thought the earth was flat or whatever. They believed in ghosts. Have you ever written anything this smart? The other part about this is that this is why you're about to learn why you never were allowed to read Common Sense. Because Thomas Paine is making many Bible references in here. And if you're going to understand this, you're going to have to explain some of these references. So stick with me for 2 minutes. I know you've got a little bit of an attention span, but here's a clip from Common Sense that talks about why we've got to get rid of anarchy, and it's based on the Bible.
Government by kings was first introduced into the world by the heathens, from whom the children of Israel copied the custom. It was the most prosperous invention the devil ever set on foot for the promotion of idolatry. The heathens paid divine honors to their deceased kings, and the Christian world hath improved on the plan by doing the same to their living ones. How impious is the title of sacred majesty applied to the worm, who in the midst of his splendor is crumbling into dust. As the exalting one man so greatly above the rest cannot be justified on the equal rights of nature, so neither can it be defended on the authority of Scripture. For the will of the Almighty, as declared by Gideon and the prophet Samuel, expressly disapproves of government by kings. All anti-monarchical parts of Scripture have been very smoothly glossed over in monarchical governments, but they undoubtedly merit the attention of countries which have their governments yet to form. Render unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, is the Scripture doctrine of courts, yet it is no support of monarchical government. For the Jews at that time were without a king, and in a state of vassalage to the Romans. Now 3,000 years passed away from the Mosaic account of the creation till the Jews under the national delusion requested a king. Till then their form of government, except in extraordinary cases where the Almighty interposed, was a kind of republic administered by a judge and the elders of the tribes. Kings they had none, and it was held sinful to acknowledge any being under that title but the Lord of hosts. And when a man seriously reflects on the idolatrous homage which is paid to the persons of kings, he need not wonder that the Almighty, ever jealous of his honor, should disapprove of a form of government which so impiously invades the prerogative of heaven. Monarchy is ranked in Scripture as one of the sins of the Jews, for which a curse in reserve is denounced against them. The history of that transaction is worth attending to.
The motivating pamphlet for the American Revolution based their argument on the Old Testament. That's why you were never allowed to learn the real truth about the founding of this country. It's too Christian for them to handle.
The James Show Podcast.